Hello, my name is Benjamin Zorko, and I'm going to do a little presentation on major and minor scales and revealing kind of what they mean when someone's talking about a major scale or a minor scale. I'm going to briefly go over the major scale first. This video is really going to kind of hone a little bit more so into the minor part of the scales. Let's get started. So the major scale characteristics, as you can see, are going to have a much brighter sound, happier sound, not as dark. These major scales are used in Western music big time. The minors and the majors are both used massively in Western music. It is made up of 8 notes, technically 7. The first and the 8th are the same, but we'll go over that a little bit here in a second. Major scales are a formative foundation for reading music, writing music, even improv, things of that nature. You definitely need to know these major and minor scales for improv and or using them for writing music. So it kind of gives the roadmap for where each instrument can live in the grooves in which they can play without sounding disoriented and or out of the box, out of the characteristic of the song. So everything is kind of formatted in such a way that it flows beautifully. So here's the major scale makeup, okay? So we're talking about notations here. This is just a real basic major scale makeup of a C. There's no accidentals in there. It's just everything's straight. And we're talking about steps here between each note. So the gap on a piano or a guitar may be between the dots on the frets, or you've got the white keys and the black keys on the piano. So here you're going to see between the C and the D you have a whole step, okay? Which means that you have 1 and 2 making a whole step here. Okay, between the D and the E, you've got another whole step. On a guitar, it would look as though it's, most of the time, it's between the dots on the fretboard. On the piano, it can vary on the white keys. At least in this instance, this C is dominantly going to be all on the white keys, just for ease of understanding here. Now, you end up on a guitar or a bass or something of that nature. From this E to the F is actually a half step, meaning instead of it going between the dots on the fretboard as a whole step, it's actually just a half step. So you're only moving up 1/2. Okay, so a major scale is comprised of a whole, half, whole, and then a half at the very end here. If you notice scales, they do end with the same notation. You have a C here at the beginning as well as a C here at the end. So these steps here, the wholes and the halves that you're seeing here, are actually what make the major scale makeup. So whether I'm starting with a C here or a D or an E or an F, if you follow this formatting, the whole, half, whole, half, you're going to end up with a major scale makeup. So the pattern here is just real simple. You can always use this in any sort of pattern as far as your fingerings go on guitar and or piano. I think what makes it really easy for me is to find a pattern like the whole, half, whole, half, and that actually allows me to stay in key with the song, depending on the position of the piano, guitar, bass, whatever that looks like. So let's move on to the next guy here. So that's just a real basic for the major scale makeup. I just kind of wanted to go over the major scale makeup before we jump into the minors, because the minors, there's different types of minors that we'll get into here in a minute. But I wanted you to just see the majors are bright sounding, Everything is formatted equally, and it's always an upbeat kind of sound versus, there we go. This was the other slide I had here for major scales versus the minor. The minors tend to be a little more gloom and doomy. So you see on this left side, I put the scale degrees here. We're not going to go over scales so much as just what a minor and a major is. But the scale degrees here on the left hand, the scale degrees are each individual note. As I said, there are 8 notes in a scale. So the first is the tonic, which is the key note. The key note meaning that if it's starting on a C as the very first note, as you see here at the very top, might be kind of difficult to see with how small the slide is, but you see it starts with a C and the scale ends with the C on a C, all right? Following our pattern up the scale with the holes in the half, okay? Meaning that you've got whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The second note is supertonic, third is the mediant, the fourth is subdominant, the fifth is dominant, sixth subdominant, seventh leading tone, and eighth is the tonic or the octave of the scale. So these are some major scales here. You have sharps and flats in the different key signatures. Yeah. So the minor scale characteristics here. Minor scales have a definite melancholy and a sadness sound to them. They are used just as the major scales, most predominantly in our Western music, and they are made up of 8 notes, just all the same. So a natural minor scale, as we talked about the holes, the major scales being the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. In a minor scale, you actually have a whole step, half step, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So the pattern changes. And with the pattern changing, you have different degrees in which the notation actually sounds off or sad or has more of a melancholy nature. You have a harmonic minor, which is going to be a different, again, pattern. You have a whole step, half step, whole step, half step, and then you have a step and a half. So if you were to think of this in numbers, you would go between these as a 1, then you would go a 0.5, then you'd go a 1, a whole, then another 1, and then a 0.5 here. Then you would actually, between these two notations, you would go 1.5 up and then a half. So the harmonic minor, it's just a variation of a minor scale. And it's used to create a stronger pull on the tonic, meaning this tonic here on the 7. The 7th scale degree is raised by half of a step or semitone, meaning the sharp here, as you see. It gives it another alteration of the scale, which is made up of 8 notes, comprised of 8 notes. There is formality in this, but you're raising that 7th up by a half degree. This can be used usually in, a lot of jazz settings, things with kind of a weird, a weird augmented type of key signature, something of that nature, throwing in an accidental on parts of music where they're really hitting on different key notes, or following a melody, a vocalist or something of that nature where things need to step up a half. But everything is uniformal. As you see here, it is a pattern. As long as we stay in these shapes and use these minor, use the harmonic minor in the scale, it's going to work out. The next guy, we got the melodic minor, so a melody. Now you notice again, we have a formula here. You've got a whole step between these two notes here. You've got a half step between each of these. and then it goes whole, 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 and then a half step. Okay. This melodic minor smooths things out. As you see, there's not that weird 7 in there. That's up a step and a half with the augmented 7th up a half. This is totally like even keeled, more so. This is more formatted as something that would be traditional. It's not going to be as funky as the last, as we saw, the harmonic minor, which tends to be a little bit differentiated. But like I said, if the music is following that flow of that step, it's going to work out as far as it sounding in place and not necessarily out of place. So these minors and these different types of minors actually offer a different type of subtlety in the music. Whether you're going for a classic rock deal, or you're going into Beethoven, or into metal or something of that nature, these minor scale makeups actually help with the building of the song. You can really definitely, some songs change major minor in the song, but having these different variations as far as what you are geared to playing for that song are just all in all going to help with the combination of the notes and everybody being on the same step. So if someone knows that it's a melodic minor, we're playing a melodic minor scale, whether that's B flat or whatever it is, we all know, if you get these steps down, it doesn't matter whether it's starting on a C, a B, a D, E, F sharp, whatever it is, we know that it's a whole step, half step, whole, and a half step. And in your instrument, piano per se, the half step usually between the keys is going to be your black keys between the white keys. On a fretboard, usually you're looking at it between the dots on a fretboard of a guitar, is where you're going to find sharps and flats and naturals, but for the most part you're going to be using those just to stay in step with the makeup of these melodic minor scales. So I did this little comparison here between the minor scales to actually really see, and this is a key of B flat, as you can see. Key meaning over here, you've got a B flat and an E flat, common time, with the treble clef here. And you can see how this is just very straightforward, okay? There are no accidentals written in. They are over here in the staffing, okay? So you have a B flat and an E flat over here in the key signature. But it's very straightforward, and it carries and transcends across the board. The melodic minor, like we were talking about, is going to be smoothed out. It's going to be traditional, okay? See, we're raising here the 6th and the 7th, okay? So we're raising the E from a flat to a natural, okay? And we're raising the F to a F sharp, okay? Comparatively to the natural minor, there is no accidentals there. Here we're throwing in a sharp on the 7th, raising it by half of a step. A step up in the key, okay? And as well as that goes down, tapers out. It's kind of more of a natural flow. It is a little bit accidental in there, but it's not nearly as the harmonic minor here, which is going to sound like a natural minor. It's going to sound really put together until you get right up here to that E, or that, yes, that F, the F sharp there. And that F sharp is going to be, again, augmented up a half of a step. And that 8th is staying the same and carries through here, okay? And it transcends down. So, again, you're going through this thing with the natural minors, the variation is the steppage between the notes, okay, is what's changing between each of these minors. So if you're at a gig or someone's saying we're playing a harmonic, or this is actually the harmonic, this is the part I want you to play over the top, is this harmonic minor, or we're all going to play this syncopated part here in a harmonic or a melodic minor. This is what they're referring to. Notice the key signature stays the same. Nothing else is changing. All we're doing here is augmenting the 6th and 7th on the melodic minor. Okay, meaning the E is going up a half step to a natural. Okay, and the F is also from a natural, is actually going to a sharp up a half step. Whereas our harmonic minor is going to go up a half step only on the 7. Okay, so that's just about it for the different types of minors that we've got here. Yeah, I mean, this just gives us different variations, different blends with sounds and whatnot. But they sink into each other. So, if a run is hitting a melodic minor in one part, it can taper back into, your standard natural minor. But these are just augmented different variations of a scale. Does that make sense? So it's all the same scale. We're raising 6s and 7s in the melodic, and then we're raising just the 7th here in the harmonic minor scale. So here is my works cited list here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it kind of made a little bit of sense. Patterns, again, just patterns. You learn the patterns between the wholes and the half steps, and it kind of opens up a world of different variations for songs. Really allows you to expand on staying in a flow together and it meshing. Okay, it's a roadmap, and as long as everybody is doing their part in the song, aka both your fingers at the keyboard and on the fretboard, the different soloists, whatnot, learning these different melodic minors as well as the major scales are super important to stay on track with a song and how it is written.